I have no respect for women who voted for Trump, okay?
Yeah, me too.
I think so poorly of them, and the reason why is because, look, I don't think that you're a single issue voter. I just think you're dumb, okay? I think you're fucking dumb.
Bullshit.
All right, the WikiLeaks leaked emails are out about the DNC. What do they show? What don't they show? First of all, let me be clear. The emails don't say, okay, let us conspire against Bernie Sanders. Let's get rid of him. Now, that might be because they don't have those emails. They only have a certain portion of the emails. Yes, it's nearly 20,000 emails, but we don't know what is in the emails they did not get. So, on the other hand, are there clear signs that they did not want Bernie Sanders to win? In these emails, yes. Now, another fair question is, was it during a relevant time in the primary? The answer to that is yes. So it was recent. It was in May. The primary was still going on. In fact, they talked about how they can get him to lose certain states. Oh, damn. Okay. So first off, there's simple things like important staffers at the DNC calling Bernie Sanders obnoxious. Okay, they don't like him. They don't like him. Okay, if you had it at that, okay, that particular guy doesn't like Bernie Sanders. Maybe there's someone who doesn't like Hillary Clinton, although that doesn't appear to be the case. Okay, we're starting out small. All right, the next thing is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Now, some people are saying that she said his campaign was silly. That's actually not true. There was a story about how Bernie Sanders thought Debbie Wasserman Schultz should step down, and he would make that happen if he became president. She said that story is silly because he isn't going to be president. Now, wait a minute. If you're running the DNC and we're in the middle of the primaries, that is a very bad thing to say. Now, she didn't say that publicly. Publicly, she said, what, me? Oh, golly gee, I'm totally neutral.
Interview just a little while ago, Bernie Sanders' campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, who had some rather tough words for the Nevada State Democratic Party. Listen to what he told me.
We do not condone any kind of violence or threats. That's unacceptable. Bad language. That's unacceptable. But we are not going to allow the millions of people who supported Bernie Sanders to be sort of rolled over in places like Nevada by the way they handled that convention.
The Sanders campaign says that the Nevada State Party, the Democratic Party, prevented a fair and transparent process. Was it unfair?
Well, first of all, let me just reiterate that the Democratic National Committee remains neutral in this primary based on our rules. But when I heard what happened at the Nevada State Democratic Convention this weekend, I was deeply disturbed. Regardless of any campaign or candidate's frustration over process, there should never be a but when it comes to condemning violence and intimidation. Violence and intimidation are never acceptable under any circumstances, and what happened at that convention was unacceptable. I was not at the convention, and the Democratic National Committee didn't have anything to do with the way the meeting was run, but the bottom line is that we've had the same rules in place, that elected Barack Obama, and these rules were adopted for state parties all across the country in 2014. They were followed, and even if the Sanders supporters were frustrated, there is never, under any circumstance, a place for violence and intimidation to be resorted to in response.
Congresswoman, the Nevada State Democratic Party said, and I'm quoting now, that Sanders' campaign staff and supporters incited violence and chaos. Those are pretty strong words. Does the DNC believe the Sanders campaign, that staffers actually incited violence?
Well, like I said, I was not there, but I do know, because there was video and acknowledgement, that chairs were thrown at the stage.
What bullshit?
That violence was used, that the state party chair, Roberta Lang, who has worked in the trenches to elect Democrats for decades, has been threatened. Her children, her child has had implied threats where people have called and said they know where her child goes to school. This is unacceptable behavior, and the Sanders campaign and Senator Sanders himself should not only outright condemn that specific conduct, but they also need to take steps to it and make sure that their supporters understand that the most important and correct way to respond to any frustration they have over process is to be civil and orderly, not respond with violence and intimidation. And that needs to be unequivocally condemned. And unfortunately, it has not been unequivocally condemned.
Have you reached out directly to Bernie Sanders to talk to him about your concerns?
I have not. We have communicated through our senior staff, and I sent a statement, and Senator Reid and others have spoken directly with Senator Sanders. I think it should be pretty clear to anybody that violence and intimidation is never acceptable under any circumstances, and it should be condemned. And there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Why not call him? Why not reach out? You're the leader of the Democratic Party. Why not make a phone call to Senator Sanders and tell him exactly what you just told us?
You know, after I heard that Senator Reid that Leader Reid had had a conversation with Senator Sanders, and he publicly announced that he felt that Senator Sanders was going to respond appropriately and issue a statement, I was comfortable that one conversation was enough. Unfortunately, the senator's response was anything but acceptable. It certainly did not condemn his supporters for acting violently or engaging in intimidation tactics, and instead added more fuel to the fire. Like I said, you can be frustrated with the process, but in the United States of America, and especially in the Democratic Party, it is never appropriate to act in any way other than civilly and in an orderly fashion, and address process concerns in a civil way. It is never okay for violence and intimidation to be the response to that frustration. That's what happens with the Trump campaign. We can never resort to the tactics that they engage in.
Congresswoman, how are you going to make sure, given the anger out there, given the passion out there, that you can prevent this kind of chaos from developing at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia?
Well, I think that as a result of this happening this weekend, we will have conversations both at the staff level as well as my having conversations with the candidates, so that we can make sure that both campaigns are focused on making sure that we can allow this process for the duration of the primary to play out in a civil and orderly way, and make sure that we don't do anything that is going to make it more challenging for us to unify behind our eventual nominee so we can elect a Democratic president. But it is incumbent upon all Democratic leaders to make sure that they lead, that they speak out against violence and intimidation, that those tactics be condemned, and that instructions be given and plans made to communicate with supporters who may not always be familiar with the way the democratic process works. Make sure they understand it and let them know what they can expect and what the expectations of each campaign is of their own supporters in terms of the way they act as the remaining delegate selection process.
Now, look, we've told you about things in the past that we already knew. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, of course, worked for Hillary Clinton in her 2008 run. And everybody knows the timing of the debates, etc., is not debatable. Funny that they put them at times where people were least likely to see them. So we understand all that. Okay, but for her to say he isn't going to be president when the voting was nowhere near over is really bad. Okay, we move on. The third part is even worse. So they were, let me be specific. It was actually Brad Marshall, I'll get to in a second. Another staffer at the DNC suggested that they should use certain narratives against Bernie Sanders. Well, you can't do that. And then in those same emails, he talks about, they think that there's a conspiracy at the DNC. No, what we should tell people is it's not our fault that Bernie Sanders' campaign is a mess. Do you understand the irony of that? They're doing the conspiracy as they're claiming that they're not doing a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy where like, okay, guys, you go make sure he loses in New York, I'll make sure he loses in Massachusetts. But there they are talking about narratives against Bernie Sanders in the middle of the primaries. Well, what is that? That seems to be conspiring against him, right? The final one is the Brad Marshall one I referred to. He's the chief financial officer. He thought that they should question Bernie Sanders' faith. They say, oh, he says he's Jewish, but isn't he really atheist? Let's get somebody to ask that. By the way, understand how politics works. This is how they play the media, and media oftentimes goes along with it. They say, oh, yeah, sure. That's an interesting question raised by an anonymous source who we won't tell you. It's actually the DNC saying, hey, question his faith. That is unbelievably obnoxious. But then it goes further, saying some Southern Baptists in Kentucky and West Virginia would not be happy with his faith if they thought he was an atheist. By the way, Bernie Sanders says he's Jewish. Here, they're trying to smear him as an atheist. Marshall then turns around later when caught, acknowledges that this happened, says, but I was probably doing it against a surrogate, I don't remember. First of all, it's not any better if you're doing it against a surrogate. You shouldn't question anybody's faith. Second of all, I thought you guys were neutral. Third of all, which surrogate? There's no other surrogate who is Jewish but that you thought was atheist. No, of course you're talking about Bernie Sanders. But even more important than the obnoxious level of that, they are trying to figure out ways to get him to lose in Kentucky and West Virginia. They're not on the Hillary Clinton campaign. They're on the theoretically neutral DNC. And these are the top level people at the DNC. Yes, they did not want Bernie Sanders to win. Yes, they did specifically conspire to have narratives against him in specific primary states. Now the jury is in. It was no question about it. All that time that they said, oh, we're neutral, and the press went along with it. Total and utter nonsense. What we were saying all along, now proven to be true. And that's the reality.
Hillary Clinton, specifically the Democratic Party and the Democratic National Committee, stole, well, I'll tell you how much they stole. According to Open Secrets, Bernie Sanders raised $228 million, $228,164,000. So $228,164,501. Total spent was $222,709,340. So let's just call it a little over $228 million. The one I'm going to read is 7 jaw-dropping revelations from hearings on the motion to dismiss the DNC fraud lawsuit. It's already been shared over 11,000 times. And that's just from me publishing it in Counterpropa, my publication last night. I'll give you 7 major themes of the DNC lawsuit, and especially the insane, ridiculous DNC defense. The crux of the motion to dismiss asserts the judge is not in a position to determine how the Democratic Party conducts its nominating process. The funny thing with that is that the lawsuit has nothing to do with how the DNC nominates its candidates or the Democratic primary. It's about fraud, it's about deception, and it's about money changing hands. Nobody would have donated a cent had they known it was always going to be Hillary Clinton. And then we get to a couple other, from 2 to 7. Check this out. Number 2, the Democratic Party views itself as having authority to favor a candidate without any legal repercussions. So the DNC lawyers told the Judge Zlock, that they can go ahead and essentially pick whomever they want, even before the Democratic primary, even before voting starts. Why even have a primary? And furthermore, why deceive voters into thinking they had a chance with Bernie Sanders? Because we know that the remaining money sometimes gets sent to the DNC. I don't know, we still haven't found out how much of that $228 million has actually gone to the Democratic Party, and many people donated to Bernie, and they had no intention of ever donating to the Democratic Party because they didn't want to be, they weren't Democrats. They were either independents, sometimes some even conservatives voted for Bernie because they were against perpetual wars and they want to break up banks. But definitely the most progressive voters, a great many don't consider themselves Democrats, so they don't want any of their money given to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And we found out, of course, from the WikiLeaks DNC emails, from Donna Brazile getting fired from CNN, and from Debbie Wasserman Schultz and 4 other Democratic officials being forced to resign and fired essentially as well, we know from those emails that the fix was in from the start. But, okay, number 3, Judge Zlock appeared skeptical, noting the Democrats' interest to obscure the guarantee of the party's impartiality clause. Democrats wanted to obscure that part of the clause. The clause says they must be impartial, let the best candidate win. The Democrats insist that impartial cannot be defined. So, just like Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton with what is.
Is that correct?
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yes.
They're always hiding behind semantics and twisting the meaning of words. So the DNC's impartiality clause is akin to a political promise in that it cannot be guaranteed. When you deceive somebody, whether or not you state your words or your promise can't be guaranteed is irrelevant. The act of deception in this case was convincing millions and millions and millions of Democrats and millions of people throughout the country, independents as well, and independents really decided the election in 2016, but deceiving millions of people into giving money to a process that ultimately benefited Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. So that's the fraud right there. There's a reason Debbie Wasserman Schultz didn't say, oh, by the way, we're never going to be impartial. Why did they hide everything? They hid everything because they knew nobody would give money. DNC's legal counsel appeared unaware of any procedures in place to determine how the DNC supports state parties as they conduct individual primary nominating contests. So, okay, the Democrats' lawyers take the position that while the Democrats are not legally obligated to conduct the primary fairly, they did in fact conduct the 2016 primary fairly.
See, I never just did things just to do them. Come on, I mean, what am I going to do? Just all of a sudden just jump up and grind my feet on somebody's couch like it's something to do? Come on, I got a little more sense than that. Yeah, I remember grinding my feet on Eddie's couch.
So it's almost like a dictator that only puts himself on the ballot and says it's a free and open election, and then says, well, you know what, the best candidate won, and it's only the dictator who was on the ballot and everybody else was, taken care of, and he happened to win. It wasn't conducted fairly. And the whole DNC defense is that, well, here's why it wasn't conducted fairly. In closing remarks, U.S. Federal Court District Judge emphasized democracy demands the truth. The judge in this case knows that posterity in the future will judge him, and will judge the court, and will judge the Democratic Party. They stole $228 million. They stole that money, and the Democratic Party owes people a great deal of money for deception and fraud. In addition to that, well, give me your thoughts below. I know that there are people saying, well, Bernie was part of it. Bernie Sanders also came into the process believing that he could win. When he found out that he couldn't win eventually, at the end, he did something I don't agree with. He sided with, or he endorsed Hillary Clinton. That I don't agree with, and I'm not comfortable with him, whether it's pushing the Russia narrative or helping prop up the Democratic Party. I'm not comfortable at all with that. Bernie Sanders doesn't have a plan B in terms of dismantling the entire Democratic Party, because if he wanted to, he could in a second. Zach Haller has been on top of this, and he's really amazing. Another person who's amazing is Jordan Sheridan. I have a great deal of respect for him. He has covered the DNC lawsuit from day one, and he deserved the Pulitzer Prize, in my view, for his work at Standing Rock and everything, all the reporting that he did. I mean, he's a true journalist. I think that he is the most important piece of the Young Turks puzzle. I'm going to play a couple just segments here from a recent Young Turks video. DNC lawyer, party didn't have to be impartial in Sanders-Clinton primary. Essentially what the Young Turks is doing is justifying the DNC cheating. Even though they're kind of playing devil's advocate, if you don't take a stand now, you're justifying it. You're not being cerebral. You are saying, well, you know, we just don't know. If a crime was committed, and a crime was committed because there was a reason Debbie Wasserman Schultz lied, I'll get to that in a second. Had she actually told the truth, nobody would give a dime. And this is a unique moment. That was a unique primary. You can't compare it to years past or even to what Republicans do, because President Trump actually wasn't the establishment pick. They hated Trump. The RNC hated Trump. He still won. So actually, this year proves that Republicans are not like Democrats. But check this out. This is John Iadarola, Michael Schur, and Mark Thompson. This is John Iadarola right now.
Back since fall of last year, we've been following the ongoing activities of a class action lawsuit against the DNC by a number of people who supported Bernie Sanders, donated money to Bernie Sanders, and feel that they were in effect defrauded because they gave that money to Bernie Sanders feeling that there was an open and free and fair and impartial primary system. They feel like the revelations of what took place during the primary show that that's not the case, and thus they gave money under false pretenses. So we now have some arguments being made by the lawyer for the DNC that are at the very least quite interesting and worded in a way that I wouldn't have gone down this direction. But we're gonna read some for you. First, and this is from Brad Spiva, a lawyer for the DNC, saying, there is no right to, just by virtue of making a donation, to enforce the party's internal rules. We're gonna return to that. And there's no right to not have your candidate disadvantaged or have another candidate advantaged. There's no contractual obligation here. But it goes beyond just that general argument. There's an example given. Brad said, but here, when you have a party that's saying, we're gonna choose our standard bearer, and we're gonna follow these general rules of the road, which we are voluntarily deciding, we could have voluntarily decided that, look, we're gonna go into back rooms like they used to and smoke cigars and pick the candidate that way. That's not the way it was done, but they could have. And that would have been their right, and it would drag the court well into party politics, internal party politics, to answer those questions. Now, the reference there to enforcing the party's rules is because there's concern that the DNC was not abiding by their rules to be impartial in the primary process. This comes from the DNC Charter, Article 5, Section 4, that says, the chairperson shall exercise impartiality and even-handedness as between the presidential candidates and campaigns. And people cite a number of different instances in which the former head of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, fairly clearly was not impartial, was not even-handed, and we can disagree on the extent of how much this actually mattered, worked to advantage one candidate who shall go unnamed over another.
We've talked before about the fact that the Democratic National Committee is, it is a cabal in a sense. A lot of stuff is pre-decided, and they, in a way, get into a room, maybe not literally, but maybe literally, and figure out who the best candidate to put forward is. There may be no sin in that because they are trying to tactically agree as to where they should apply their strategies. But I turn to you because whether or not this is an actionable thing, I think it's creative.
If you're the lawyer in that case for the DNC, that's exactly what you're going to say. I mean, I didn't have a real problem with anything you said until he got to the impartiality of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, right? I mean, because she clearly wasn't. And if that's what you're bound to be, then she wasn't. And
I wouldn't have said the part where, like, if we wanted to simply go in a room and choose the nominee, that's our right. I think, especially considering the political context going on right now.
But isn't it the right? But I think it is their right. The Republicans
could literally have done that.
Yeah.
I know. I'm saying I think they could. The Democratic Party, like every political party, is a private organization. They should change their charter if they're going to go in that direction. They could have done that. I would not pitch my argument in that way, I would say.
I see what you mean.
I think
that's just illegal.
He was being a lawyer there by saying, hey, look, we can even meet in the back of a car somewhere and make this decision.
Right.
Yeah. He's trying to make an extreme.
Yeah. And like when George H.W. Bush was running in 88 and then 92, Pat Buchanan challenged him in 88. The Republicans behaved exactly the same way. And of course, you don't want to always compare yourself to your opponent, but
yeah. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. The Republicans didn't have to fire 4 people from the RNC So don't tell me they behave the same way. And even if they did, who gives a? It's completely irrelevant. That's why this lawsuit, that's why Jared Beck is such an amazing advocate, lawyer, attorney for the Bernie supporters who are suing. Because he wants to make a change. People like Jared Beck, people who want their money back, Bernie Sanders voters, they want to, even if the paradigm is, well, the Republicans did it in 1988, as if 1988 in the Republican Party is relevant to Bernie, the plight of Bernie Sanders supporters in 2017. Even if that were the case, when will it stop? When do you expect things to change? The neoliberal kind of, well, we got to be pragmatic. It'll never change. And there's a reason that Republicans own Congress and the White House. It's because of that. Well, in 1976 or 1988, if you really look at Pat Buchanan, who gives a? That has nothing to do with one DNC staffer trying to use Bernie's religion against him, trying to paint him as an atheist, because atheists are easier to beat. Imagine if Trump were to do that.
But the party politics stuff, that's just going to happen, and maybe they should change it. It's a product of the duopoly, and I'm not just sitting back here and saying it should go on that way. But clearly, this is a lawyer trying to find the best way to win a class action lawsuit, and
that was a unique primary. You can't compare it to years past or even to what Republicans do, because President Trump actually wasn't the establishment pick. They hated Trump. The RNC hated Trump. He still won. So actually, this year proves that Republicans are not like Democrats.
That's true.
By what he's saying, even the stuff that I disagree with.
Yeah, we have to acknowledge it's a lawyer. It's not an actual member of the DNC.
Yeah.
He says there that he doesn't believe that it was rigged. You can disagree with him, but that's what he's saying. I think it's clear that if you're going to have a claim to impartiality, you cannot. I mean, look, everybody in politics is connected in various ways. If you've been in DC for a number of decades, you're gonna know people. But certain people being the head of the DNC during a primary seems like a bad idea when they have a clear history with certain candidates. I would not go in that direction again. Now, it's frustrating. I don't like the way they're pitching this. I think that it's short-sighted. I think that I don't know that necessarily those trying to get the money back have much of a case, because donations are donations.
With all due respect, donations are not donations. Donations are not donations when you lie to acquire the money. It doesn't even matter if Republicans lie. Also, the fact that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign, the fact that Donna Brazile was fired from CNN, the fact that four total Democratic officials were fired because of the WikiLeaks DNC emails that actually show they tried to use Bernie Sanders' religion against him. The Young Turks knows all of this. There's no precedent. It's unprecedented. Even if one were to say, well, the Republicans do the same thing, we don't know the extent, because there hasn't been emails where we can actually see, yeah, they tried to cheat Trump. And even if there were emails, Trump is president and Trump was nominee, despite the fact that Nate Silver of 538 didn't even think he'd become GOP nominee. That's real news, not fake news. Nate Silver didn't even think he'd become GOP nominee. So not only were the Republicans against Trump, the establishment, the RNC, even the statisticians never thought he had a chance, but he won. Donations to Trump were donations. That was a fair fight, or at least a fight where he wasn't cheated. With Bernie Sanders, donations were not donations. With Bernie Sanders, had Donna Brazile and Debbie Wasserman Schultz actually stated, we already picked the candidate, because even in the beginning of this video, they actually quote the DNC, one of the DNC lawyers saying, yeah, if the Democratic Party wanted to pick Clinton in a back room with cigars, like they did 100 years ago, that would be okay too. So they're justifying everything. And of course, the other panelists here were saying, oh, it's legalese, da da da. donations were not donations in this Democratic primary. Fraud was committed because people were deceived and people would not have given money. That's the big issue. They would not have given money had they known the truth.
But I think that they're digging the hole even deeper here. Now, some people have gone farther and tried to say that this is the DNC admitting that they rigged the election. I'm not sure how you derive that from this actual quote. I'm sure maybe it feels good to say that or to think that that's there. But I think that this is a horrible direction to go in. I think, again, it's the lawyer, it's not them. They're not necessarily in charge, but they need to avoid these sorts of things if they're going to reaffirm to people that there's actually the possibility of positive change in the party's future.
All right, but here, let me play devil's advocate for a quick second on that. I mean, they probably would say, hey, look, by this lawsuit, by this class action, we're going to expose or re-expose or enter into the discussion once again these flaws in this party. And this, there's no question that the party political system is flawed, and they would say, and these flaws need to be addressed. And if we need to address them in this awkward, ugly way, then we'll do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're going to give $100 to Bernie Sanders and you want him to be president, and then you find out that he isn't where you are on a certain issue, you can't go after Bernie Sanders and say, wait, I want my money back. I mean, in a way you can, and sometimes campaigns do give money back. But I feel like this is really all about the legalese, and this, class action lawsuits are usually brought by opportunistic lawyers, and it's probably a lawyer fighting against an opportunistic lawyer, another opportunistic lawyer.
Who is asking for their money back because somebody didn't uphold a value system as a politician? That's not even an example that is relevant to this lawsuit. If that were the case, of course, if you could go after politicians, Hillary Clinton would have to give billions and billions of dollars back. She's never had, aside from the most safest of issues like pro-choice, a policy position that she didn't flip-flop on 1,000,000 times. This isn't about a politician not giving voters or contributors to his or her campaign exactly what they want. Just like the last quote, donations are donations. No, donations are not donations because they lied to get those donations. And right here, this has nothing to do with a politician simply not appeasing his base or her base. This is a political party deliberately deceiving its most progressive voters to eventually force them into voting for Hillary Clinton. And the Young Turks had a role in that. Not Jordan Sheridan, but Cenk and everybody else there. If Cenk Uygur, if the Young Turks said, the hell with this, we will not vote in the beginning of the primary or right after the DNC emails, we will not vote for anyone if they cheated Bernie Sanders, or we will not vote for a neocon. That's a whole other story. You wouldn't have this cheating because the DNC would know that a YouTube channel of 3 million subscribers wouldn't stand for their unethical or criminal behavior. Same with Bill Maher and Michael Moore and all of them. If these people actually took a stand and said, no, we're not going to vote for anyone. If Pelosi and Schumer are the ticket in 2020, we're not voting for them. The Democratic Party would be forced to change. But that's a whole other story.
Another opportunistic lawyer.
Well, I mean, look, TYT Politics did an interview with with that lawyer, and I mean, the rhetoric coming out of him is that this is fundamentally about how you conduct a democracy, how much ability people have to actually get the candidate that they want. And so I do think that we should be very concerned with that.
I will leave you with this. And the reason I say that the Young Turks, what they do often is they straddle well, we're going to report this and we're going to take a stand, but then we're kind of going to appease everyone who the I'm With Her crowd, and I understand that. They have 3 million subs, and I only have 70,000, and nobody knows who I am, really. Everybody knows who the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur are. Heads roll at the DNC. 3 top officials were ousted Tuesday as the organization struggles to right itself. Guess who did the firing? Donna Brazile. Guess who was then fired from CNN? Donna Brazile. This is a Politico article. Then you have top DNC staffer apologizes for email on Sanders' religion. Imagine what the Young Turks would do if it was top RNC staffer or top Trump staffer apologizes for email on Sanders' religion. They would do 10 videos and they wouldn't straddle both sides. Well, you know, it's kind of good that... No. They would call it for what it is. Anti-Semitism or something horrible. Something disgusting. Then you have Jared Beck, who is really an amazing attorney and advocate, and he is representing Bernie supporters. Speaking of TYT and DNC fraud lawsuit, this is what another of TYT's reporters tweeted after Sean Lucas's passing. Nice, huh? And then, so you have, by the way, here's my opportunity. Okay. So check out Jared Beck. He's amazing. He's basically calling out the Young Turks. If you want to defeat Trump, very simple roadmap. You force the DNC to give back the money that it stole from Bernie supporters. And you publicize the fact that Bernie supporters are owed that money because not a dime would be given to Bernie Sanders, but also not a dime would be given to Hillary Clinton. You'd have the I'm With Her cult give Clinton hundreds of millions, which she wouldn't have raised $1.2 billion. I don't think any of the people at TYT would say that Hillary Clinton would have raised $1.2 billion had they been honest. And simply saying, well, you know, if the same thing with Republicans, if they were honest, they wouldn't raise money. No, actually, that's not true. Conservatives have a completely different reason for voting for their politicians than progressives. Give me your thoughts below. The Young Turks does this often. And again, this is no disrespect to anybody, especially Jordan Sheridan, to me, is one of the great journalists in America. And that, I have to say, he's the most important piece or most important person at TYT in my humble view. But this segment, DNC lawyer, party didn't have to be impartial in Sanders-Clinton primary, not only helps Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the DNC, Donna Brazile, Hillary Clinton, a corrupt Democratic establishment, it reeks of fear and this kind of neoliberal, well, you know, we can't really expect any repercussions because this criminality is so ingrained in American politics. So it's kind of unrealistic for Bernie supporters to even expect a dime given to them, even though that money was stolen from them, stolen through deception, because they wouldn't have given money had they known Hillary Clinton was already elected.
I come across a tweet by H.A. Goodman that stated that the Young Turks dissed him and that he had a response for Jordan Charlton. Now, what we are going to cover is this video that Jordan made. Now, H.A. Goodman is claiming it's at the behest of Cenk Uygur. I tend to agree with him because Cenk Uygur is a pussy, regardless of what side are you on. H.A. Goodman is one of the most credible journalists I have come across. He is a progressive. He is to the left of me. However, if you go to his channel, all he does is basically cover similar shit that I do in regards to how the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, lies about Donald Trump's bullshit with Russia. He was probably the premier motherfucker to go to during the election when it came to Hillary Clinton and WikiLeaks. Now, what's fascinating about this is so was Jordan Charlton. I do think Jordan is generally an honest dude, but clearly he has a conflict of interest because he's working for a liar. Cenk Uygur is a fucking liar. The other thing, as you know, is they paint anyone who disses the Young Turks as alt-right. But this is one of the few times where someone from the Young Turks is going or calling out. Frankly, this is not even calling out. This is a outright slander of H.A. Goodman. But Cenk Uygur took his most credible, well, maybe not his most credible. Michael Tracy's his most credible. But his other most credible journalist, reporter, and had him do his dirty work, and I would argue has now put Jordan Charlton in a position where he has to choose to defend the indefensible in Cenk Uygur or maintain his credibility. And even though I like Jordan, even though I had up until this video respected him, you still, just because you're put in a bad position doesn't make it acceptable for you to lie.
But I, personally, have gotten tweets. I've gotten emails. I've gotten phone calls. Direct phone calls from viewers telling me the Young Turks isn't progressive, telling me I should leave, telling me, ranting, trying to rally others against the Young Turks. And hey, I believe in free speech. If you want to say that, if you believe that, then by all means, go.
Jordan, they're doing this because they know you're credible, and up until this point you've been honest and you have a good reputation, and they don't want to see that tarnished. That's why they're doing that, because Cenk Uygur is a liar. There is when it comes to independent media, the dishonesty of the Young Turks is probably the most covered thing in all of fucking YouTube. I am not the only person that does this. You could watch probably for the rest of your life coverage from other people on YouTube about how dishonest the Young Turks are.
But you're wrong.
Show us where we are factually wrong about how the Young Turks lie.
You're wrong. So there's individuals, and I'm just going to say it. I don't know them. Nothing against them personally. There's individuals like H.A. Goodman.
All right, let's stop right there. It's very simple. You lie, you're done. That's it. You are no longer credible when you lie. So, first of all, I'm only going to show one piece of evidence of how this is an outright fucking lie. But if you want the rest of it, simply watch H.A. Goodman's video, because he explains all of the other instances where it is impossible for Jordan Charlton to say he doesn't know H.A. Goodman. 10 months ago, Young Turks politics, who's on the left hand? Jordan Charlton. Who's on the right hand? H.A. Goodman.
Hey, it's Jordan with TYT Network, Monday, June 20th. And by popular demand, I've tracked down columnist and journalist H.A. Goodman.
Oh, and you actually called him a columnist and a journalist. Oh, not some guy you didn't know. Not only is this outright disrespectful to a person that has been nothing but fucking credible. Do you know how rare that is? That you would lie about him like that. But it gets worse. Trust me, it gets worse for me to get off the couch at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning.
Who is a blogger or a commentator or whatever.
Oh, I mean, how dare you do that? That's disgusting. You know that that's not the case. And you disrespect him like that. That's fucking disgusting.
And he was very anti-Hillary in the primary and the general.
So were you. In fact, the two of you were the absolute most credible, fantastic reporters when it came to Hillary Clinton and WikiLeaks.
He was very heavy on the email story.
So were you. And again, both of you were fucking fantastic.
He was very heavy on essentially, ranting against all things establishment Democrats and that. And to a certain extent, I agree with a lot of things he said. He also said and reported a lot of things that were not factual.
Now, this is where we're getting to the level of unconscionable. This is outright slander. This is an outright lie. This is absolutely not true. But this just shows you the level of scumbaggery of Cenk Uygur. That he basically put Jordan in a position to choose between his credibility and his loyalty to him. That is some fucked up shit. Absolute fucked up shit.
And now we're not based on fact. Straight up. I could do a separate video just going through the list, but I don't have the time.
You're going to need to, motherfucker. Otherwise, you are a fucking scumbag. Fuck you for saying that. You're a fucking liar. Until you prove it, you are a fucking liar.
He was, after the primary, coming up with half-baked theories on how Bernie is still going to win, when there was no chance Bernie was going to win because Bernie wasn't a candidate.
what the fuck are you talking about? When does he ever... During the election, because see, I had a concern. Because Hillary Clinton wanted to put a no-fly zone in Russia, I was extremely concerned that she was going to win the election. So every fucking day, I watched H.A. Goodman and you, motherfucker, and also Alex Jones, because I like comic relief in coverage. And frankly, when it comes to WikiLeaks, his shit was pretty fucking credible. I mean, he said the same shit as other people, but we all know what Alex Jones is, and that's not even the issue. I never heard him say some shit like this. He liked Bernie Sanders a lot. But he never, I mean, who the fuck would ever argue that Bernie Sanders could win when he's not a candidate? The level of disrespect here is so fucking insane. I cannot believe you would do this to a person with the stature of H.A. Goodman. And what are you trying to do? Do you really think, this is the other thing, and this is why I left the left, because there's no salvaging this. You have, maybe there's 5 people on the left that are credible, right? And now you have one going after the other and slandering the other. That's how bad it is. You have credible people, but because the Young Turks are fucking corporate, because only the corporate Democrats would defend the fucking DNC, you have now put further divisions in an already fucked party where you come after one of the most beloved and respected motherfuckers. H.A. Goodman, I wouldn't say went after the Young Turks. He critiqued them accurately about their motherfucking bullshit. Jordan Charlton is going after H.A. Goodman because what Jordan Charlton is criticizing H.A. Goodman for is a fucking fairy tale. He is lying about H.A. Goodman. This is completely, absolutely fucking unacceptable. Once again, if I didn't make myself clear, fucking Jordan Charlton.
And he did this because he was getting clicks. He did this because his following was growing.
His following grew because he was credible and he was telling the truth, bitch.
He did this because there was a very large, angry following of Bernie Sanders supporters that were susceptible to people like him. And again, I don't know him. I don't have a personal issue with him, and I've interviewed him.
Whoa. Wait. You don't know him, but you interviewed him.
He's not the only one, by the way. But this is a Fox News method, and I know because I worked at Fox News.
You know what? I will say that the Cenk Uygur retarded line of argumentation, you've adopted very well. You're definitely following in his footsteps.
Identifying an angry, justifiably, by the way, I think Bernie Sanders voters, progressives in general, are justifiably angry because they donated money, they donated volunteers, and they donated their hopes and dreams, and it was a fraudulent process.
So you agree with everything that the people you're criticizing are saying, except, but you're going after them and going off here. I wonder why that would be. Oh, you just decided to attack people that you disagree with? Or maybe you got a phone call from your boss that was like, yo, you're credible, and people don't view us as credible, and people are angry because they are discovering, as I've been saying from the goddamn beginning, that the Young Turks are corporate fucking media.
But anger has to also be mixed with reason. Anger has to also be mixed with facts.
I mean, you're taking the most factual motherfucker in H.A. Goodman and claiming he's not factual. That's insanity.
Anger has to also be mixed with what is the overall record? What is the overall? Right?
Well, if you're talking about the Young Turks, while I will grant you that there was at one time a history of credibility, that is no longer the case. There has been a long, multi-year, consistent pattern of lying from the Young Turks. And just because you at one time were credible doesn't mean you can get away with years of fucking lying.
So I, by myself, in a year at TYT Politics, I chose not to cover Donald Trump 24/7. I chose that. And I chose that knowing I was sacrificing a hell of a lot of views. I was sacrificing a hell of a lot of subscribers. And I was sacrificing a hell of a lot of buzz for myself. But I chose to sacrifice that because to me, the real story was Bernie Sanders' movement. To me, the real story was the disappearing middle class, and I showed that along with Emma on a trip. And do you know who supported that? All the people who are now saying TYT is a bunch of sellouts, now saying TYT is not progressive. You know who okayed me to leave the campaign trail 2 weeks before the election? No reporter in America would have gotten approval to leave the campaign trail. The only reporter for a network, by the way, to go to North Dakota for a story that wasn't going to get as many views, wasn't going to get as many subscribers, and wasn't going to make them as much money.
How does that change the fact that they are defending corruption inside the DNC? Just because you did something good does not mean that you have license to do something bad. Your argumentation is like a child here, bro.
But Cenk told me, go ahead, do it. And I don't agree with Cenk all the time. I don't. I don't agree with the Young Turks a lot of the time. The specific segment this week that a lot of people have been upset about is they did something on the DNC lawsuit. Michael Schor, who I don't agree with a lot, I think he's a nice guy, though. I've met him. He's a very nice guy. He said something along the lines of, oftentimes people who file class action lawsuits are opportunists. And John Iadora, I always fuck up.
First of all, he also said and completely misrepresented the argument, claiming that it's unreasonable for Bernie Sanders supporters to donate, and then if Bernie Sanders changes his mind on some sort of policy, for them to get their money back. That was not what is happening at all. You have a person on a show who doesn't even understand, either doesn't understand the fucking argument or dishonestly changes it, when the argument is that according to the DNC charter, they are supposed to be unbiased, impartial, and that's not what happened. And so they committed fraud. So I'm sorry, like, you can disagree with shit all you want, but when you lie and defend corruption, you're a piece of shit. He might be a nice guy. I don't give a fuck, but he is defending the indefensible. It is not an issue of being too progressive. I don't give a fuck about progressive. And frankly, I doubt that a lot of the criticism the Young Turks got from the left on that video was because he wasn't progressive. It's because he was defending corruption. You know that. And it's disappointing that you don't accurately explain the position.
His last name's John Iadora said something along the line, donations are donations. I don't agree with either of those statements. I think it's a very generalized statement to say, oh, people in general that file class action lawsuits are opportunists. I think that's a generalized statement. There's no doubt.
So you agree, again, with H.A. Goodman.
Data or facts to back that up. And Michael's my colleague, and I disagree with him. And if he was watching this, I don't think he would care that much because we could disagree.
I don't give a fuck what he thinks.
Doesn't make him a bad person.
Okay, let's define some shit here. If you misrepresent people's arguments and you defend corruption, you are a bad person. Fuck that. You are a bad person if you defend corruption and you lie. You can defend people and their bullshit like that because you have to work with them. Fine. You know, like I said, I was not one that expected you to call out the Young Turks on their bullshit. However, what I will not fucking tolerate is this idea that you're going to defend their fucking bullshit and then try to take down one of the most credible journalists in the process. That is bullshit.
Do I think Michael is as progressive as I? No, I don't. Does that make Michael a sellout? No, it does not.
How is defending corporate corruption not selling out? What would you have to do to sell out? You're not making any sense.
Does that make Michael a bad person? No, it does not. By the way, Michael, which H.A. Goodman and others didn't report, came out and said, I chose my words poorly. John, do I agree that donations are donations? No, I think that's a simplistic way of looking at it. Donations aren't donations. If you're a private organization, which the DNC is, essentially, if, let's say, a company did a fundraiser for breast cancer for one of its employees and got in hundreds of thousands of dollars and the employee didn't have breast cancer, that's called fraud, and it's against the law.
That's what the DNC did.
So I disagree with both of them. But you saw people like H.A. Goodman, right? You saw people like Tim Black. I just saw Nico House, who's a friend of mine. I like Nico. Doing all these videos, basically trying to rally the troops, turn off TYT, they're sellouts, they're frauds, they're fake. And they're entitled, by the way. This isn't like me telling you not to watch them. If you want to watch them, by all means.
By all means, you can watch them, but you would just be watching predators that are like Fox News.
I believe in watching as much as you can, getting as many different opinions as you want. But I will say, what they're doing is preying on people who are frustrated, who are angry, who are emotional, and who are susceptible to hucksters.
You claim that a motherfucker is your friend and you talk about him like that? What kind of person are you? Are you fucking serious? And you really don't think the way that the Young Turks cover Donald Trump isn't the same fucking thing? They lie about that dude all the time. I wish I could do something else and talk about some other shit, but it is a constant barrage of fucking bullshit. And as I've said before, the reason that I constantly talk about it is because you cannot have a situation in America where a president is impeached over lies. That would fundamentally alter the fucking country.
I've never seen H.A. Goodman out in the field. And that's okay. Some people are commentators and they're in the studio.
Well, then why the fuck would you bring it up?
I've never seen H.A. Goodman get offered multi-million-dollar contracts from a cable news network and turn it down.
Oh, yeah, because, Cenk Uygur's broke. He's not running the most successful independent news outlet. And him getting some sort of multi-million-dollar contract, that's the same thing as if one of the people was offered a multi-million-dollar contract. In addition, why the fuck would that matter? What does this matter?
I saw Cenk Uygur do that. I've never seen Tim Black do that. It's very easy when you're in a studio or your bathroom or whatever, and people who you don't think are as angry as you, who you don't think are as true as you, who you don't think are as, progressive as you.
The word you're missing is truthful. You want people to be truthful. The issue is that they are defending corruption. It has nothing to do with being progressive. It has to do with defending corrupt motherfuckers and being total and absolute hypocrites.
It's very easy to attack them. It's very easy to try to paint them as the other or fraudulent. That's very easy. You know what's harder? To be factual.
The Young Turks are one of the most least factual news outlets in existence. H.A. Goodman is one of the most factual journalists in existence. You have lost your fucking mind, bro.
You know what's harder? To add context. You know what's harder? To play a little devil's advocate. I don't have a problem with A.J. Goodman. I don't have a problem with Tim.
Again, I don't have a problem with Tim Black. It's just that, or excuse me, Tim Black actually, he meant someone else. Or he got scared and realized, wow, I'm really going after like everybody credible on the left. Nothing wrong with H.A. Goodman or the guy that I call my friend. It's just that they're predators and they're like Fox News and they're like hucksters. And they're preying on people's anger. You are an extremely disingenuous person, and that's disappointing because I thought you were better than this.
Tim Black, I don't have a problem with Nico. I think the more independent media, the better. But what I do have a problem is Young Turks, by the way, Young Turks, anchors, reporters, producers, editors, collectively, we make a choice to take a lot less money than you can in the corporate media.
Oh, well, perhaps we're getting to the bottom of what this is all about. The people, don't give a single fuck about the fact that you take less money. Frankly, regardless, you, motherfucker, and anyone in the Young Turks is likely making a lot more than the average person watching your shit. Frankly, this is a bit, I'm not going to say offensive, kind of elitist, kind of virtue signaling, really kind of making you look like an asshole.
Because we are progressive. And we care about getting the truth across. Young Turks, Cenk, made a decision to hire a reporter, and he lost a lot of money doing so. Because...
Do you really think this is going to work? I don't understand. Who are you talking to about this?
Build a YouTube channel? When you build a YouTube channel, right, and there's 0 subscribers, yet you have all these costs like airplanes, hotels, food, cameramen, editors, you're spending out more money than you're taking in.
Who are you talking about? The Young Turks have millions of subscribers. What, you're talking about the beginning of TYT politics? Oh yeah, that didn't have a built-in fucking base. You're extremely fucking disingenuous, dude.
Yet, these people, because a segment was done and some things were said that you don't agree with, are...
No, not things that people didn't agree with. You guys defended corruption.
Essentially calling for people to not watch TYT, to not focus, to basically boycott. Because the two hosts weren't as true as them. Well, I guess aren't true believers like them.
No, they're defending corporate corruption.
And I can tell you, folks, you might not agree with me. And you might want to go the other way. But I'm not going to do videos just to keep viewers. I'm not going to do videos just for ratings. I'm not going to do videos for clicks. And frankly, I don't want viewers or supporters or followers who, if I, dare I say, do a video that isn't as angry as them at the time, isn't as true believer as them, if one day a establishment Democrat, dare I say, deserves credit for something, I'm not going to run it. I'm not going to do a channel where I have to cater to people who only want to see the world in one way.
That's ridiculous. So you don't want to be held accountable for selling out, which is not surprising because you work for a complete sellout network.
Because you know what I believe? I believe there's a real enemy. And it's not the Young Turks. It's not Cenk Uygur. It's not John. It's not Michael Shore. I believe the real enemy is Chuck Schumer. I believe the real enemy is Nancy Pelosi. Enemy peacefully. I'm not talking about violence. I believe the real enemies are the Clintons. I believe the real enemy is Mitch McConnell, is Paul Ryan, is the Chamber of Commerce, is Big Oil, is Big Pharma, is the corporate media. That is...
Bro, you are the fucking corporate media. You might not realize it. I don't know what the fuck you may or may not realize. I do know that you're defending the indefensible and you're lying about H.A. Goodman. But the Young Turks are the corporate media.
This is who I believe is the real enemy.
And if you believe the corporate media is the enemy, then you're working for the enemy, dude.
Because if you're going to listen to these people that I've mentioned about who is progressive enough to watch, who is progressive enough to support, either with your views, your share button, or your money, then you're going to have a really small damn pool.
Well, yes, because there's not that many people telling the truth. And now we have one less person telling the truth that was once credible. But this is not about progressive. You continue to lie and claim that this is about being progressive. This is simply about telling the truth and not defending corruption.
You're going to have a very small pool, and it's going to be a lonely club.
But that's okay. I don't care if there's one other motherfucker, because then we'll be able to sleep at night.
But I've worked for propaganda media before.
You work for propaganda media now.
Where what they do is they make a boogeyman and they attack, saying you, the person or the group or the organization.
Yeah, you know, actually, you make a really good point, Jordan. Because, you know, what I find is there's this news outlet, actually there's a bunch of them, and they've actually demonized an entire fucking voting bloc. They've labeled them the alt-right, and every single fucking Trump voter is the alt-right, is the other. And if that's not good enough, they have now even, through you, have gone to the point where they're now attacking people inside their own fucking party at the worst possible fucking time and labeling any person that has a problem with the Young Turks defending corruption as an other. This is amazing.
You're not true enough. You're not Republican enough. You're not right-wing enough. You're not religious enough. And now we're getting that here to independent media. You're not progressive enough. And believe it or not, I'm not doing this video because I care or not if you watch the Young Turks. If you don't want to watch the Young Turks, don't watch the Young Turks. If you don't want to watch me, don't watch me. Seriously. People ask me, why do I not run for office? Because I'm not willing to give blowjobs.
But you are giving Cenk Uygur, arguably, the biggest blowjob anyone has ever done in the history of YouTube.
Bullshit.
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 Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.